which is what I was asking them. Am I going to give you access to my phone when I have my sources of information on there for this? And so people understand my concerns, because they're legitimate concerns. In Rotherham, one of the towns hit by the rape scandal of Muslim men, English girls, the police actually deleted evidence. When young girls went in and gave them their underwear, which had the DNA of men on it, who had raped them, when they then went back in for the prosecution of the case, the underwear had gone missing. Yeah. In Rochdale, in Telford, in Oldham, in all of these cases, the police worked against the interests of the public. They worked to hide the evidence in these cases, to get rid of evidence and protect the, and not just protect the, protect the dirty hands of lead police officers and lead government officials who had allowed this to continue for a generation. So many of them had dirty hands. So I told the police, why would I give you, these girls have come to me to tell their stories. They trust me, not you. And the reason they do that is because whatever you put on your computer system, and in fact, in episode 5 of our investigation, it was the police who gave the address of our survivor to the Muslim gangs. It was the police who leaked the information to families at the school. It was the police. So no, I'm not about to put the jeopardy or the safety of the survivors or anyone who's given me their trust in confiding in me with information so I can expose it. And that goes for whether it be about corruption of the court cases, the judiciary, or the rape gang. So I told the police in no uncertain terms, you're not going to get a PIN code off of me. And if you want to charge me under terrorism legislation, then you do that. And at which point I was transferred from the port to a police station to be charged. I then had a solicitor, because up until this point, you don't have a right to remain silent under terrorism legislation. I then get a solicitor. We're both told, including my solicitor, that we're about to be prosecuted. I undergo interview where I explain exactly what I'd already said to the police. No, you're not having it. And this is an abuse of police power. Well, the first question to me was, what is your opinion in the terrorism legislation? What is your opinion of the UK right now? And I said, a totalitarian state. And they said, care to explain that? I said, yes, I'm currently sat here under no investigation. You don't believe I've committed any offence. But here I am without a right to remain silent, being quizzed about my legal and lawful activism and journalism, and under terrorism legislation. This is a totalitarian state. This stinks of nothing more. This exposes nothing more than a totalitarian state. So I went through all of this, and then when it gets to, I undergo my interview, and I'm sat in my cell for 5 or 6 hours, and I don't get charged. So I haven't yet been charged. So something happened between this and this for them to make a decision, bail him. And that's what they've done. But they took my phone. They took my phone to download every bit of data. This is the government and the state receiving every bit of data off of my phone to do with my work, my activism. Even after I told them I'm a journalist, that's my work phone. But they've still gone in. So this is what happens on the 28th of July. I'm then released. I'm released on the 28th of July at 11 p.m. I don't have a phone, but I continue to make my way where I was going. I drive through France. By the time I actually get a phone in Spain, by the time I get a 16 or 18 hour drive, I'm then informed when I get online that there's been a murder of young girls in Southport in the north of England, where a man has gone in and he's butchered lots of children in Southport. That's all that was given to us at that time. Okay. Now the alarming bell for me, not the alarming bell, but whether this is conspiracy or not, because this proves it is that evening, there was a vigil, or the evening after. There's a vigil for all the children who have been killed. Southport is a close-knit working class community, and all of the families have come out and they're there. And so people can understand what were they going through in this community. A few days later, I spoke to one of the uncles of these children who were attacked. His 7-year-old niece, the man entered the building, he grabbed this one family and the uncle I spoke to, that was his niece. The goddaughter on the other side of the family was 9 years old, and she was dead after 7 times. So so you can imagine the anguish, the anger from this community that was going on. They've all come out to hold a vigil, and around the corner from the vigil, a man of Arab appearance has been detained with another big knife and a balaclava. So word has quickly spread amongst the vigil that there's another planned attack on the community. That has boiled over into anger, into frustration, and into clashes with the police. Now, I didn't organise this. I hadn't even had a comment on it at this point. Yeah? But that night, when riots started ensuing, by the British public, not by any organised group, the police come out and made a statement saying it was members of the English Defence League. Now, as soon as I heard that, so your viewers and listeners understand, I formed the English Defence League in 2009. It ended in 2015. That's a decade. There's not been an English Defence League for a decade. There's no organisation, there's no membership, there's no meetings, there's nothing. It's unheard of. Okay, it's unheard of. But by blaming, rather than I was trying to work out why they were doing this, and then I've received, it's probably to land it on my feet, yeah, so they can tarnish me with the. If they have to accept, why are people rioting on the streets of Southport? It's the British public. It's not an organised far right group. But by straight away labelling these British people as far right, they don't have to discuss why they're angry.
Let me ask you a couple of things about that, Tommy, if you don't mind. So you should probably walk people through what the English Defence League was, because that's one of the accusations that's leveled against you with regards to being far right. We should also probably take apart this massacre of these young girls, because my understanding is when that first occurred, that rumors were spread that was like a first-generation immigrant was involved in the stabbing. Now, it turned out that it was a second generation. It was the child of first-generation immigrants, and I'm not trying to make a case for that. I'm just trying to lay out the facts, and so it isn't obvious to me. How do you understand the uproar about the stabbings, the murders, in relationship to the furor that's developed on the immigration front? So let's walk through the English Defence League. I'd like to talk about the British National Party too, which you were involved in, that Wikipedia defines as fascist. And so those are two things we can deal with. And then I also want to know how you understand conceptually the connection between your activism and that big rally that you had that was peaceful, and because that had an effect, and there's no reason to assume that didn't increase the probability that protests of the sort that we saw in the aftermath of the stabbing were likely to occur. And how do you construe your own responsibility for the heightened probability that such riots, for example, were likely to occur? So there's a lot of things to walk through. English Defence League, British National Party, and then your understanding of the relationship between your rally and the protests that did degenerate into violence in the UK. Let's see if we can sort that out.
We'll start on the British National Party. So you're right, the British National Party was a fascist political party. And when I was 21 years old, I held my first ever rally, and it was called Ban the Luton Taliban. It was against the increased Islamisation and jihadist organisations. We spoke about them in our last meeting. Now, when you're drowning, you clutch at straws, and Luton and my town was drowning. And I looked for anyone talking about this issue. The only people I found talking about it were the British National Party. Now, the reason why people know I was a member of the British National Party is because there was a leaked list in this year that I'm talking about. Now, the leaked list showed 5 years. So I joined 1 year, yeah. I don't join the next year. I don't renew my membership, okay? And I'll explain why. So I joined the British National Party. I looked for someone talking about, they held a meeting. I turned up to their meeting. I spoke about it in our last sit down. I said that I was part of a football culture, and there was a large group of us who went to football together. So the British National Party would have been excited that they had boots on the ground in Luton, yeah, young men who were boots on the ground for their activism. Now, when I joined the British National Party, I had no idea that Nick Griffin, who was the leader of it, was the former member of the National Front. As I said, I wasn't political. I was just a young lad. And their first 10 points you'd have to be brain dead not to agree with them. When you go on the website, homes for British pensioners, and get all the 10 points you'd agree with, yeah? So they hold a meeting. We turn up to the meeting as young lads. And this is actually documented by a far left magazine called Searchlight.